the quality of the people that you had a meaningful impact on in a relationship and that impacted you is the only scorecard that matters, because that's your legacy. And so to me, that is how I judge my life is, am I building relationships that have mutual impact? And so when I say FounderNexus is the absolute apogee of my professional aspiration, it is that because I am now able to meaningfully impact the trajectory of hopefully tens of thousands of founders in the world.
You're listening to What Fuels You, where we deep dive with CEOs, entrepreneurs, and business leaders to learn more about their stories and uncover nuggets of wisdom we can all use. I'm your host, Shauna Swerland, CEO of Fuel Talent, an award-winning recruiting firm based in Seattle. Today's guest on the What Fuels You podcast is Court Lorenzini. Court is the founder and CEO of multiple successful technology startups, including DocuSign, Point.com, Primus, BioVision, and MetaBrite. His latest venture, FounderNexus, aims to triple the success rate of venture-backed startups, and his work with the Lorenzini Family Foundation is aggressively investing in building a stronger and more equitable society. Additionally, Court serves on the boards of many early-stage companies across the US and UK, as well as the United States Olympic and Paralympic Foundation, and is an active investor and advisor. Over his career, Mr. Lorenzini has raised over $300 million in venture and strategic funding from leading corporations and venture capital funds. Prior to his entrepreneurial ventures, Court held several senior management positions with Cisco Systems and KLA-Tencor, including 2 years running a technology business in Switzerland. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Duke University and post-grad credentials from Stanford, UC Berkeley, and University of Wisconsin at Madison. Welcome, Court. So good to see you. Thank you for joining the podcast.
Hey, Sean, it's great to see you too.
Okay, I'm hitting you with first rapid fire. Is there an app that you use every day that you can't live without?
Probably a combination of Gemini and ChatGPT these days. That's probably where I go most days.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with ChatGPT. When people aren't, I'm like, I literally use it all day long. Okay, when you're at the movies, is there a candy that you like to get? Are you a candy guy?
Dots. I'm a dots guy. Yeah.
I love dots.
Yeah.
I like mutt balls when I'm at the movies, but I do love dots. That's a good one. Is there one daily ritual that kind of resets you or kind of helps shape your day?
Morning hot tub. So every morning I get up before the sunrise or very early, let's just say, sometimes it's after sunrise. And I go out into my hot tub for about half an hour, 45 minutes to watch the sun come up and sort of be with nature, because it's outdoors. I live on the water, so I get to watch the otters playing in the water and the birds waking up and fishing and the eagles nesting and listening to them chirping back and forth. And it's like the best part of my day.
Are you on your phone during this, or are you just chilling?
A little of both. So I start just by absorbing the morning, just being there in nature, and then I read the news.
Oh, it's so good. My friend, actually, the one I was just telling you about, my friend Chad, he does the exact same thing. I don't know if he does it every morning, but I'm always like, that's such a good vibe. Like, and he's on the water. I'm like, you're looking at, it's like nature, and then you're in a hot tub. It's good.
It's incredible. I honestly, it's my favorite part of my day every day.
No cold plunge?
I'm not a cold plunge guy. My wife is a cold plunge person. We have a cold plunge also. And this time of year, winter, she's in the lake every day.
Yeah.
It's 50 degrees in the lake. So she's in there for, 15, 20 minutes. But no, that's not my jam.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I can't do it either. What's your favorite city?
I'd have to toss up between Paris and London.
Yeah, that is a toss up.
Yeah, I love them both for different reasons. And at the moment, I'd probably pick London. And the only reason I give it the edge at the moment is I have a daughter that lives there now. So I'm getting very comfortable in London. So it makes it more friendly and approachable. And we go multiple times a year now just for visiting. And I'm opening a FounderNexus chapter there in a couple of weeks.
Ooh.
So that'll be fun too. So I'll have even more reason to go to spend time in London.
I'm so jealous. Okay, Court, what is your hidden talent?
So I define this. I actually have a whole process that I use, Shauna, that I call the superpower evaluation. And my hidden talent is optimization. So I'm a born optimizer. I cannot do anything at any moment of any day without thinking of how to do it better, how to do it faster, how to do it in fewer steps, or improve it in some way. And it comes out in my work, in my family life. Every little bit of me oozes trying to optimize everything I'm doing, touching, or interfacing with.
I love that. So I'm guessing you're just obsessed with AI. Such an optimization tool.
I am to a degree. Again, I think it's interesting in its current form because it's more predictive modeling than it is intelligence per se, but I do find it useful, very useful.
Yeah, I find it to be such an optimizer of time. Just like synthesize this. Like I just did the Enneagram test and I just like 36 pages come back and I put it in there and I'm like, give me the net. My friends always joke, like, I have no tattoos, but if I had one, it would say net.
Net.
I hate time wasting. I'm like, give me the bottom line. And I use it for that a lot. Or I'll put in labs even from the doctor and go, here's the deal. What do I need to know? Tell me the 3 questions to ask my doctor. So I love that. Okay. What is your dream ski vacation that you haven't done, or maybe your favorite one that you've done?
So ski vacation Hokkaido. I'm dying to go there. I've heard it's amazing. Friends that go every year. I spend all of January, February, March, and April skiing every day, every year. So I live in a place I have a house in Montana that I am right on a ski slope in my otherwise favorite place in the world. But yeah, haven't done Japan yet.
Every day. So you're getting in, I guess I can't do the math, 30 times 4. That's a
I,
lot of
I, I have I have
skiing.
access to it every day. I'll get 60 to 80 days of skiing in a year. Yeah.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. It hurts my body. I'm very jealous. I'm not a great skier, so that's impressive. Okay, final question, and then we'll get into you and your childhood and all the goodness. What is one quality that you most admire in another founder?
Willingness to listen. So the ability to assimilate knowledge from others rather than having to walk through the fire yourself every time. And I think that's a key thing that I look for in every founder that I back or work with is that willingness to engage in other people's experiences and assimilate the elements of those that are authentic to that human. And because this is something I run into all the time, I get brought into companies to guide a founder, CEO team, and yet mine is a singular lived experience. And so what I look for is, are they willing to listen, number one, but number two, can they pick and choose from the things that I have experienced and authentically apply those to their journey? Because their journey will be inherently different than mine. And I don't expect them to pick everything that I learned as action item. It's simply the
Mhm.
ones that would apply to their customers, product, market, culture, journey, etc. That's definitely the most differentiating characteristic I look for.
And what about you when you were, call it 25? What would your answer have been? Has it changed? I mean, has that come through wisdom?
Of course, I think that is. I'm not sure what I would have answered at 25, to be honest. I think creativity probably at 25, or willingness to think outside the box. There are
Yeah.
a lot of people that I run into who very much constrain their thinking, and I've always been attracted to people who think kind of crazy thoughts and are willing to take risks. That's why I'm a founder, why I love being a founder. And an optimizer. Like I look at my optimization core skill and I've focused that in the area of venture scale businesses. And so I look at where I am right now in life and I'm like, I am a world expert at the optimization of venture backed businesses, which is why I started FounderNexus. So we'll get to that.
Yeah, I cannot wait to learn more. There's so many people. Hopefully, I'm going to send this to a lot of potential members. Is it a community they join as a member for Founder Nexus?
FounderNexus is a membership community. Yeah. So they
Yeah.
joined as members. Yes.
Okay, cool. So tell me early days, like where did you grow up? How did you end up here in Seattle?
Okay. So I grew up in the Bay Area and I had a very interesting and very formative childhood. My father was one of the 8 people that's considered the founders of Silicon Valley. He actually invented the commercial process for growing silicon and brought it to market and was the original producer and provider of all of the silicon for all of the original companies that became Silicon Valley. And so his was the connections to all of the legends of Silicon Valley who were just his peers. And thus they were my friends, or my, the parents of my friends. So our dinner table was regularly with the founders of Hewlett Packard and Intel and Cypress Semiconductor, and all these very famous companies and founders were just our family friends. And so I had this incredible opportunity to have a front row view at the foundation of Silicon Valley, which, of course, as a young person, you're not really understanding the implications of that. But I knew these were incredible men. What that ultimately led to, which was even more interesting, is that my father was also one of the very first venture capitalists. And so his firm had an interesting practice. And the practice was that there were six of them, six partners. And every month, one of the six partners would host the other five at their home for a dinner. And at the end of the dinner, the partners would adjourn to the living room of the home they were in, and they would have one founder come in after dinner and pitch them in their living room. Okay? So twice a year, every year, I got to sit in the dining room, listen to these other five very senior investor, founder type people, and then go sit in my own living room and listen to them hear the pitch of a founder. And then the founder would leave and then listen while they deliberated on it.
That is the coolest. Did they ever ask your opinion?
Not usually. And it wasn't so much that I needed to give an opinion. It was just an incredible way to absorb how investors looked at companies, how founders pitched, or what a good pitch and a bad pitch was.
Yeah.
And just learn that from just being a fly on the wall, literally being a fly on the wall. And I did this for years through my high school years. And I was just sold on being a founder from pretty much the day I figured out what it was. And so I knew that was in my game plan. And because my father had been very successful at it, and back then success is nothing like it is now economically. It's still very life-changing, but not like it is today. That I could see that there was success there, that it was hard, and that you had to know how to work with investors and work with employees and build ideas and construct teams and all these other things that went into building successful end outcomes. But it was laid out for me as though something that I could absolutely accomplish.
Yeah. And I'm sure it gave you a certain level of confidence just being in the room with people, just saying these are just human beings who I'm having a conversation with, because you are in front of major executives and you know that they're just humans who you're around.
100%. That I learned some of the best lessons, and they were just dinner table lessons. These were not being taught to me. This was just them talking about what it took to be, what are the little tips and tricks that they gave each other.
Yeah. My dad was also a CEO and built a company and took it public. And I was in those same exact type of environment where my brother and I are both entrepreneurs. And it's like when we get asked, it wasn't told like, this is what you should do. Nobody was saying that. But when you're around it and you feel it, it's like in your blood or something. You're just kind of like, business is kind of where my brain goes. And it is the conversation at the dinner table that gives you energy. But do you have siblings?
One younger sister, yes.
And is she an entrepreneur? Like, what's her vibes?
Not even close.
Went the
Never
other direction.
interested her. I also have three daughters, none of whom are interested in entrepreneurship.
Oh,
So
interesting.
not a thing that is carrying forward, but
Interested in business?
my oldest one is somewhat, but the other two, not so much.
Oh, so interesting. Yeah. And so Silicon Valley back then, a totally different deal. Like it's, obviously become way more flashy and fancy and vibey with the whole bougie vibes. But back then, it was really a lot of serious brainiacs, right?
Well, I actually, if you understand that I was born in the 60s, so
Oh, you look young.
I have a very different view of Silicon Valley. The South Bay, San Jose was literally a cow town. All of San Jose and South was cattle land and agricultural land. And most of the central or the South Peninsula was agricultural land. It was fruit trees and nut orchards. And then San Jose itself was where we used to go in high school to go to the honky tonk bars, to go ride mechanical bulls, drink beer, and line dance, because that's who was in San Jose, was the actual cowboys who would come in off the range, having managed the cattle herds of the South Bay, and come into San Jose to blow off steam at night. So to me, that was Silicon Valley before it was Silicon Valley. And I remember my father's second company that he started, he had to build the building, and put in the streets and the land. It was going out into some old, and my sister's name is Haven. So he named the street on which he put his building Haven Court. And it is
Love
still there
it.
to this day.
That's so cool.
So because look, that's what it was. There was no built, there wasn't Silicon Valley. It was
Yeah,
agricultural land.
totally. And so what were you into in high school? Like if we were friends in high school, were you like into everything? Or were you one of these kind of I'm tinkering all the time and taking apart computers? Or were you more the business kind of I'm out selling things to my friends?
Both, actually. I was both a tinkerer and a business person. So, yeah, my first car I ever bought, for example, my dad bought me a brand new car. So, off the showroom floor, it was a cheap Toyota pickup truck. Nothing flashy, not four-wheel drive, nothing. It was a little two-wheel drive POS.
Perfect for the honky tonk bars.
And pretty much the first thing I did, brand new car, took it home, took the entire motor apart, top to bottom, gutted it, souped it up to a multi-hundred horsepower engine, took out the catalytic converter, and put it all back together. And so I had this brand new car with this super high horsepower engine that nobody saw coming.
Did you sell it then for double the price? I'm just kidding.
Years later, no, because I took the catalytic converter out, it made it a little more complicated to sell it on later years. However, I had so much fun with it, and I tweaked it out in all sorts of other ways. I custom painted it. I did all sorts of stuff. So that's the kind of person that I was in high school. It's like take a brand new car apart, don't even drive it, just like soup it up
Yeah.
immediately. Yes, I did have a bunch of computers growing up, and actually my first professional job, I was 14 years old. I was a freshman in high school. And the local upholstery shop had come to deliver something for my mother. And the guy who ran the shop was a one-man shop. He's like, hey, I need some muscle for the summer. Would you come work for me, moving furniture in and out of houses and into my shop? Sure. And I got there and did that. But I also looked around his shop and I realized that there's fabric swatches all over the walls because he's an upholstery shop. And I said, hey, would it be okay if I computerize this for you? And he's like, and we're talking the late 70s, right?
Yeah, like back then, you're like, what are you even talking about?
Right.
Yeah.
There were no computers that people had except for like early Apple things, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but sure. I'm like, okay. So I brought in a computer and I organized his entire inventory for him. And he was so gracious that he's like, I'm going to teach you how to upholster. So the whole rest of the summer, he literally taught me the craft of upholstery. So I actually could, if somebody put a gun to my head and said, take this chair apart and reupholster it, I could probably do it.
That's super cool.
Crazy
Good.
thing.
Yeah. Most people are not all of those things. I'm sure you've done 100 different assessments and personality, but like you good with your hands, good with your mind, left brain, right brain, techie, also business. It sounds like you're kind of the Swiss Army knife, a little bit of like all of
Yeah,
it.
a little bit. Yeah. And I've always loved having those challenges I was into woodworking for years. I built furniture and other things. I've done electronics, mechanical.
Do you have that now, like that need and that outlet? Do you have anything that you're doing now that's like, I cook or
I
I,
do. I love to cook. I'm a pretty good cook. And for years, probably for the first 10 years of our marriage, I did all the cooking. And yeah, so I do like that kind of a challenge.
yeah.
Today, the challenge is more working with founders at scale. So for me, there's a different kind of a challenge, a different kind of a creative energy that I get to bring to work every day. But it's kind of living my best life.
I'm sure you're drawn into the types of founders who have curiosity and conviction around something that they're passionate about or that they like to kind of dig in on. I see a correlation sometimes where it's like the best founders are also just the types to go deep and wide on things and stay really curious.
That's the definition of a founder. It really is.
Interesting.
That
Yeah.
all of us that are wired to be that kind of a crazy person in the space of I'm going to take this giant risk and risk
Yeah.
my livelihood, my reputation, whatever you think you're risking at the time, to take that leap of faith. Those are my favorite people. And the fact that I get to be surrounded by those people en masse globally every day is the best thing ever for me.
Oh, I can't wait to get into it. So, okay, so your parents are obviously like your dad is setting the tone in your life of like what could be. And at an early age, you're like, I kind of want to do that. I want to be a founder. Was there any part of you that's like, I don't really need to go to college because you didn't even, like mess around? You're like, I think I'm going to go to Duke of all places, great education. How'd you choose from Silicon Valley, Duke?
So both my parents were Stanford grads, and it was always sort of expected. And even my own expectation was I was going to end up at Stanford because it was in our backyard.
Yeah.
And the honest truth is that I got accepted to Duke and a few other programs that I'd applied to in college. Duke was the very last school of those that I was accepted to that I visited. And I walked on campus, took the tour, and was smitten immediately. I just knew in my core that this was the place I needed to go. It spoke to me so deeply that I walked from the tour into the admissions office and wrote them the check on the spot. Didn't even deliberate any further. I was like, this is it. This is my place. And it was other than my marrying my wife, probably the best decision I've ever made.
Yeah, most people I know who went to Duke are there's certain schools who it's like people are very passionate about Duke. I'm sure you know Dan Levitan. He's been on
Oh,
our
very well.
podcast.
Yeah.
And Dan is like Mr. Duke. And I have several friends who are just like really obsessed with that school. My son, of course, well, he doesn't play basketball anymore, but when he was a little boy, it would be like, I'm going to go play basketball at Duke. I'm like, okay, good luck.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yes,
best of luck, honey. But like, it's such a cool thing to have people be so passionate about where they went to school. I don't have that.
Yeah, no, my wife was we met at Duke, but years after graduation. My eldest daughter went to Duke. Many of our friends, yeah, there's a handful. Dartmouth, I would put in the same
I
category.
almost just said Dartmouth because that's just the other school. And the Seattle people that went to Dartmouth are all like a little gang. Several of them have been on the Matt McElwain
Duke people are like that too.
and Brent Fry.
Yep.
They were both on the podcast. They're like, it becomes a subject like Dartmouth.
Yeah, no. So we at the Duke grads are very similar in that regard. We recognize the Dartmouth grads as similarly wired. A lot of mutual respect.
Yeah, love it. So did you feel the need? I mean, when you were there studying mechanical engineering, right?
Yep.
Were there people that were kind of mentoring you, developing you along the way? And who was it that was putting it in your ear to go get? I mean, you have so many credentials, so many degrees. Is that something that you look back and go, it's important? Or if I had to do it over again, didn't need all of that education?
It was important for me. And I think the thing about college and my postgraduate programming was that it taught me how to think and execute more clearly. So I often tell people that I didn't go to college to learn a discipline. I learned how to think objectively and critically.
And do you think kids are doing that today?
Yes, some of them. I think a lot of them are spinning their wheels in college because I don't think they really know what they're trying to get out of it. And
Yeah.
I always knew what I wanted to get out of it. In fact, one of the early practices that I started from the time I was 14 is, do you remember those old college ruled notebooks that were bound?
Oh, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would carry around one of those religiously all the time. Person said something that was interesting and I'd write it down. Or I see this product and I think it could be better, or I like it for these reasons, or I am an employee in a situation where I'm watching somebody else execute a managerial decision or discipline an employee or make an announcement or do something that impacts their business. And I'd be not only taking notes about what they did, but also making my own thoughts about if that was my decision to make, would I have made it differently and why?
That's so brilliant. Have you ever taken those? I feel like today you could ingest them all and then put it through ChatGPT and see themes.
So here's what I would do. So this was the interesting practice. So I had year after year after year, I would do this. And every 6 months, roughly, it wasn't on a hard schedule, but on average, twice a year, I would go back and I would read every notebook from start to finish to current. Okay, so after a number of years, what I was able to accomplish with that is I would have this incredible history of my own, not only evolution of thinking, but all of these little data points of ideas that had come to me over years and observations about managerial inputs and outputs and outcomes and things. And that it was one of my best tutors because other than talking to another person, it was just reflecting on my own observations and thinking. And it incredibly guided me in terms of becoming a better leader, a better husband, a better friend, a better person who could ideate things and yeah, I kept that up for decades.
That is it's so impressive. You're the only person I've ever talked to who's done that. My grandfather, who was a founder, used to have the spiral notebooks. And
Yeah.
for some reason, when he died, I got them all. But he would just notes and notes and notes and notes. But it would be a little bit different than what you're talking about. His were business notes.
Mhm.
And it sounds like yours are kind of all of it. And almost, I don't know why I'm getting this vibe, but I'm almost getting like a spiritual vibe from it, like very high level, kind of
Yeah.
like, where is all this interconnectedness and not just execution?
Each thought it was its own thing. It wasn't, I wouldn't say that I had the purpose of understanding that it was all so much interconnected as I was just capturing moments and observations and feelings that over time started to make sense in the context of time.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect example. In 2001, in my notebooks, I was writing, this was the heyday of the iPod and the Microsoft Zune failed device and these dedicated music players that were these digital music players. And I looked at that, I'm like, somebody should take that and merge that with a phone. Wouldn't it be great if you could actually have a product that was a phone, a digital, because at the time the phones were these brick things that you carried around
Yeah.
with, And I said, if
That
you
was the
could
time
take
when I had my BlackBerry. I was obsessed with my
exactly,
BlackBerry.
but it
Yeah.
was pre-BlackBerry. I'm talking
Yeah.
before the BlackBerry had even been introduced, and or right around that time. And it was like, okay, we should be marrying these with a phone. And then I wrote a whole business plan about how you would do that, how you would create a music player, phone, digital combo. And at the time, I concluded that it was going to take a big company to do it, that it would not be something that a
Wow.
startup could accomplish. The risk would be too high, the capitalization too high. And sure enough, a couple of years later, we got the iPhone.
That's so crazy.
And so I was like, all right, so it's stuff like that, which was just, it was coming to me as I was going, and I'd write a whole business plan for it and be like, okay, some big company has to pull this off.
And are you a person who has like vivid dreams?
Not that I remember. I do not
Yeah.
remember my dreams ever.
Ever? Never, ever?
No.
I do every single day. And it comes out to me throughout the day where I'm like, did I dream that or did that happen? And then I have a full memory and they're very detailed. But some people have that where they wake up with an idea and they write it down. I'm guessing your
Okay,
notebook would
so
come in
that's
handy.
different. So it has nothing to do with my dreams. But from years, again, I still do this to this day, but it used to be I would keep a stack of Post-it notes and a pen that when you clicked it, a little tiny tip light would come on so that I wouldn't wake my wife up. But I have a habit of waking up at roughly 4 o'clock in the morning with a brilliant idea. And the brilliant
Nice.
idea just came to me in my sleep. My brain will work on it while I'm resting, and I'll just wake up with a fully formed answer. And I need to be able to get it out of my head. So I would write it down on these little Post-it notes and stick them off the side of my bed, which the act of that would allow me to go fall back asleep. Because if I didn't write it down, I would not be getting back to sleep, full stop.
Yeah.
Today, I just take notes on my phone. But back then it was Post-it notes.
Yeah.
And then in the morning, I would wake up and I would look at my notes, whatever I'd written overnight. And a lot of time it was legitimately great stuff. A lot of time it was absolute
A
garbage.
lot of times you're like, what the hell was I
What the hell was I thinking? Exactly.
Yeah, but that's okay.
So,
At least you got it out.
but I got it out and I got back to sleep. And,
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, you get it. The point is, I still have that habit. I still have great bolts of insight in the middle of the night, and I still have to write them down so I can get back to rest.
And if there are good ideas that are like potentially a new business, but you're like, dude, I am not starting another company. I am put on this earth to do what I'm doing now with FounderNexus. Like, are you giving these ideas to other people, being like, someone needs to go build this?
Usually what comes to me are the solutions to problems I'm actively thinking on. So it's
Got
not
it.
so much new ideas for new businesses. It's something that I have been hard pressed to solve in my daily life that will all of a sudden the solution will come to me. And
That's amazing.
it could be a business problem, an interpersonal problem, how to face a friend or a sibling or a
Yeah.
colleague with a tough conversation.
Tough conversation.
How to
Yeah.
phrase that conversation properly so that it hits mark accurately. Those are the types of things.
That's great. So you've got obviously crazy academic pedigree. Is that something that's important to you? I'm asking from the context of, I've been recruiting for like 30 years. And when I was doing it in New York, East Coast, so focused on pedigree, much more than West Coast. And obviously depending on the role and the industry, but is that something that people respond to when they meet you? Like, oh, Duke, oh, Stanford, Berkeley. I mean, you've got it all. Or is that not important to you?
It's not. It is, and it's never something I lead with. And in fact, it's often something that it's not something I go to. It's not a go-to in my conversational space. So my academic career, yeah, I got my undergrad at Duke. That's great. I did 3 post-grad programs, Stanford, Berkeley, and UW, University of Wisconsin, Madison. every one of those was purpose built to deliver an outcome. So, Duke was about getting engineering, again, strategic thinking, etc. My minor at Duke was computer science. So it was mechanical engineering major, minor computer science. So postgraduate, I went to work for a company that had employed me during college, and they had a program where they would pay for collegiate, a master's program anywhere, as long as I got decent grades, kept working, and it was somehow applicable to my job. And so each of my master's degrees was an effort to learn a new skill to get a promotion. So they would pay for me to go do something, at which point I would use that as leverage to get a promotion. So my first was Stanford. I did a manufacturing systems engineering master's program. Then I did Berkeley computer science. And then it was a company I was working for was in very, very high level optics. And so I did an optical engineering master's program at the University of Madison, Wisconsin. And each of those was a stepping stone to something next so imagine that in a very short time frame. So you're 20, let's call it 22 when you graduate college. 3.5 years later, I'm 25. I've done these various 3 master's programs that they've helped pay for and put me through. And I get to go to Europe to start my own company, a division of the company, because they now trust me and I have the skills broadly that they feel like a 25-year-old could go make this work. I got to go to move to Germany and then ultimately to Switzerland to start a subdivision of their company in Europe and be there during the fall of the Berlin, post-Berlin Wall, the dawn of the EU. All of that was just extraordinary time to be in Europe.
That's incredible. And so you worked at KLA and Cisco. So big company experience. Was this all with an eye toward entrepreneurship eventually? Or was this all, because you sound very intentional and methodical in your way you think, more than almost anyone. Actually, Dan Levitan is similar. I was shocked when I talked to Dan because in his interview, a couple questions that I was like, oh, wow. There's certain people who are just like that. I wish I could say I was like that. But it's incredible. It's very inspiring. Are any of your kids like this?
My oldest is very purposeful. Like she's always thinking six moves ahead on the chessboard. And I respect that. That's kind of how I've always been. I knew what I wanted to do from the time I was young. Every step I took was purposefully in that direction. And each of these subsequent steps and opportunities was on that pathway to get to a place where I felt I had the skills, the exposure, and the capabilities to step out on my own and do my own thing.
Yeah. So tell me your first kind of on your own entrepreneurial endeavor was point.com.
Yep.
And what did that business do? What was the business model?
So roll the camera back to 1996. We were just hearing about this thing called the internet in 96, and it was just for sharing information. So I was working at Cisco at the time. My co-founder, another Duke grad, was here in Washington State working for Microsoft on their server and tools division. And our idea was to start a company that would do something with the internet. Specifically, was the concept of comparison shopping. So we invented the process of comparison shopping on the internet, the box matrix you see of sort of the features on one side and different products across the top, and how do they stack up, and whether I want A, B, or C based on my whatever I thought I needed. And we happened to be doing that right at the time when people were figuring out that commerce was something you could do as opposed to just information sharing. So the business started out as an information business, advertising supported, as you might imagine. And then it quickly morphed into, hey, we could actually sell stuff. And so it became the world's first e-commerce site for mobile phones. And so we took, because back in that time, there were probably 8 to 10 different carriers available in every single major metro area. So carriers were prolific, they proliferated. And the model at the time was if you wanted to buy a phone, the actual handset, you had to do it through physical retail. There was no such thing as e-commerce. And part of that was governed by the fact that, the cellular carriers in a market had exclusive relationship with physical retailers. So if you wanted a Nokia phone, you could only buy it at 1 or 2 different retailers. If you wanted a Motorola phone, you had to go to different retailers. If you wanted a Samsung or whatever. Okay. we came to market and we said, we're going to not only make everybody's cell plans visible to everybody else, but we're also going to sell every handset from every manufacturer, no exclusivity. And we were the first company to break the exclusivity provisions of physical retail and be a place where you could come and buy a fully enabled phone delivered to your house on any carrier from any source. And so that was our claim to fame. So we built that business, ended up selling that company in 2001, but it was a fascinating business.
How did you fund it, and what was your role?
So I was the CEO, and in all the companies I've started, I've ultimately been the CEO because that's the role to which I am best suited. I'm very good at fundraising. I'm very good at people management and leadership, and really good at, as I said, optimizing systems.
Yeah.
So that puts me in a place where I'm well positioned to be a good CEO.
And what are you not good at as a CEO? Or sorry, areas for development.
Areas for development, exactly. So I always think of them as what sort of complementary skills do I need around me
Yes, exactly.
to be highly successful, okay? I need people who are super imaginative, meaning they will come up with tons and tons of ideas, because in combination, my superpower is able to pick through 100 different ideas and find the good ones. So if I find somebody who's a really good ideator, my co-founder at DocuSign, Tom Gonzer, was an ideator superpower, and he and I made a fantastic pairing because of that.
Yeah.
He could come up with 100 ideas before breakfast, and I could tell him that idea 2 and 37 were the good ones today. And if you paired those with idea 64 from 4 days ago and idea 9 from some other time back, that was a great combo. Like I could.
And what about someone like that? Obviously that's an incredible skill set, so complementary, but sometimes that person can be a little bit like failure to execute. Like if they're too creative or too much out there in the weeds.
This is why the pairing works, because my ability to optimize systems and build good outcomes paired with somebody who's a great ideator might not always have the greatest follow through or greatest leadership capabilities because of that high ideation indexing makes a great pairing.
Yes. So now let's get back to your founding of DocuSign. I know you founded the company in 2003. I love DocuSign. I use it literally every day, all the time. But I'm thinking back to like what the vibes were back in the early 2000s, and not everybody trusted things over the internet. So talk to me. Tell me about that journey, and what was it like trying to get companies in the world to trust in electronically binding signatures?
Well, it got a lot more practical than that really quickly, because when we started to have something we could sell, our biggest impediment was the chief legal officer at every company.
Right.
Because every business person that saw it was like, oh my God, this is Nirvana. I've got to have this.
Yeah. I'm going to the ski slopes. I'm going to sign it up at the top.
And the CLO would be like, no, sorry, that's too big a risk. We can't do it. The business, it puts our business too much at risk. There's no precedent in the courts that demonstrate that this is a valid signature. And this was a bugaboo for the first several years of the company. And it was one of my more out there founder moments, shall I say. But in desperation, what I ended up doing, which turned out to be one of the biggest leaps forward for the company, was I went out and I hired a judge, a prosecuting and a defense attorney, and a full jury of people. And I found a case of insurance fraud perpetrated as a fraudulent signature on a document. And I had them retry the case holistically as if it had been signed with DocuSign.
Brilliant.
My intention was to get an outcome of it is legally defensible, that the court would have found, the judge would find in favor after prosecution and defense had rested, that it was in fact legally binding. There was certainly law on the books that would suggest that, but I needed somebody with a legal pedigree to agree with it. What I ended up with far exceeded my expectation, in the sense that what I got was not only the judge saying this is a legally binding document and it must be upheld, but he actually wrote a separate opinion paper, which said not only I as a judge I preside over these kinds of cases with routine. I've done hundreds of them. This was without a doubt the highest standard of proof and far exceeds anything I've ever seen brought into a courtroom around proof of actuation and signature. And he said, this is better than ink, it's better than fax, it's better than everything else we're doing. This should be the norm. And so I was able to take that ruling and the opinion paper to the chief legal officers and get them to step back. And that was a huge aha moment.
That is huge.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So is it at that point that you realized you had some sort of, I guess, product market fit, or was it the Microsoft Realtor partnerships?
That was just a necessary but insufficient step, right? That needed to happen just to unlock the legal officers from their sense of their burden of, hey, we got to protect our companies, right? So that was number one. Going to the realtors, the National Association of Realtors, they had a big platform that we could, and I was able to negotiate a white label deal where they would include it as a feature, but that the output would be DocuSigned by somebody. So it was the whole experience was white labeled as if it was just a button in their tool in their software, but the stamp on the document said DocuSigned by Shauna or Court. And that was a leapfrog moment. The final one was Microsoft. And this one was purely happenstance. We were one of the very first strategic adopters of .NET technology from Microsoft. And one day in the executive briefing center, which Microsoft has a habit of monthly having meetings of all their executives, the .NET team happened to be the team that was presenting. And we had no idea this was happening. They came to the EBC and presented to the executive team, hey, the best use case we have seen in the market for our technology is this local company called DocuSign, and here's what they're doing. Next thing I know, I'm getting an inbound call from the head of legal at Microsoft, who, by the way, his name was Kevin Harang, but he worked for Smith, the now CEO.
Brad Smith?
Brad Smith. So Brad was the chief legal officer. Kevin was his right-hand man. Kevin calls me up. He's like, hey, Brad and I want this, we want to be using this. Can you come in and show it to us? And so, again, put the timestamp on, we'll call it 2005. Microsoft then, what NVIDIA is now. It's the biggest, baddest.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that doesn't happen. You're like, hey, could you come over to Microsoft? That's incredible.
Yeah, and we want to implement this. How can we do it?
Yeah.
So being asked, it was a totally different thing. So we had the legal backdrop of the case. We had the blessing of the biggest, most influential company in the world to use it. And we had distribution through the National Association of Realtors. That was the springboard moment. Those three things had to come together to launch.
Incredible. And most would have stayed. How come you left?
I look at founding as a journey of three primary phases or steps of a corporate life cycle. Phase one is what I call napkin to product market fit. Phase two is rapid growth, and phase three is profitability. So in that simplistic model, I believe that it takes different skills and different focus in each phase to be a successful leader. It turns out I know enough about myself to know that I am at my very best in phase one. In that crazy moment when every decision is existential, it could all go to heck in a handbasket, and you are building everything almost with blinders on. You just don't even know what's coming. And yet when it gets to phase two, the rapid growth phase, where it's just repeating bigger and bigger processes of the same thing, I actively get bored as a human. And I am not going to be the best leader in that phase. I could absolutely do it, but I look at my responsibility in the startup journey as getting the company to its highest level of success as quickly as possible. And I recognize that there are people that are born stage 2 leaders and born stage 3 leaders.
Absolutely.
I'm a born stage 1 leader, ultimately. It's where I have my best impact, and it's where I have the highest degree of joy. And so every company that I have started, I have gotten to product market fit and then stepped out in order to give it to the next CEO who will take it through the next phase of its journey. And I've done that with purpose.
Well, I haven't seen anything so far that hasn't been with purpose. I'm guessing that's going to be how you live for the rest of your life. It's impressive. And you were able to hold on to your founder's equity. Is that common, or is that a skill? Like, is there any advice you could give? Because I always hear these disaster stories about equity.
Yeah, I mean, look, I hung on to all of it before the IPO, and I probably hung on to all of it too long. after the IPO. Rode it all the way up and then back down again. But whatever, it's still life changing and it's still fantastic. And I look, it's part of the ride.
Yeah. Real quick on that. Is money a driver for you? I mean, obviously we have a certain lifestyle, but what are your drivers, I guess?
Yeah, money is a tool. So I counsel founders on this. I'm like, look, it's a tool in the tool bag. You need it to get from point A to point B. It's like fuel in the tank. I see it the same way in life. I could exist on a lot less than I exist on now and be perfectly fine. Having it gives me other opportunities to use those tools in different ways. Today, I use it to fund other companies, to fund other founders, to invest in the infrastructure of the entrepreneurial ecosystem at large. The whole business I'm building, FounderNexus right now, started out as more or less a philanthropic exercise to try and give back to the entrepreneurial community, something I felt was of lasting benefit. And so, yeah, money is not what I would say the motivator. My motivator is more, I don't know, sociological. I like to think that what I'm doing in the world is helping the world become a better place. What I do, what my wife does in our philanthropy work is all about creating better societal outcomes. And what we try and invest in and do, each of the businesses I've started, each of the things I involve myself with has that as sort of the overarching theme. And it plays out, as I say, into our current philanthropic work, into our private lives, et cetera.
I want to get into it's not really the order I had these things in, but we're talking real quick about your investing. Is there a lens through which you are, I'm guessing because you are so intentional, that there's a lens through which you're looking at the investment opportunities, because I tend to get a little bit of FOMO and I'm like constantly sending it. I'm like, okay, slow down. And I feel like I'm like gut only, and that's not really great. You and I are both invested in the same women-owned venture fund that has actually been great. And I know that you that you know that women-led funds have outperformed. So are you exclusively looking at women-owned funds, or like what's
Of
your
course not.
thesis right now?
No, that would be silly. I mean, I think so in terms of investing in general, within our household, my wife and I run the for-profit investing, she runs the nonprofit investing. Our umbrella is always and exclusively, how do we make society a better place going forward? So that's the conversations we're having. And our allocations of money of nonprofit to profit have everything to do with where we think the most leverage is. So we will support female founders, female fund leaders, non-traditional leaders, underfunded socioeconomic groups, et cetera, in order to get, because we believe there's a lot of opportunity there and that we want to create better societal outcomes. Because if we are able to create those success stories in those places, they will carry that into their communities and on, which is really a big part of the driver for why I'm building FounderNexus. I'm trying to prove a multi-phase theory that ultimately changes the world's economy.
Have you been mentoring people all along, and FounderNexus kind of came organically? And in between all of this, you even had another couple companies, and one that you've described as a major failure.
Yeah.
Probably makes you even better at FounderNexus. Yeah. What is Primus BioVision, by the way? I don't know why I didn't know that company.
So Primus BioVision was so in 2008, after I stepped out of DocuSign, Obama had just taken office. And with a high degree of promise around investing in energy independence for the United States. So things that were clean energy, clean, green, et cetera, were coming into focus for people. And I thought that this would be an opportune time to start an energy related company. So Primus was an opportunity to build two things that were unique for me. Number one, what I think of as a cash flow business, meaning a business that was built on its own cash flows rather than a large level of venture investment. I wanted to see if I could build a company like that, which I was.
So did you bootstrap it?
I did. Yep. Took very, very little outside investment, a few angels, that was it. Then got it to cash flow positive, and it was just turning over cash flow to my investors. The other thing was to demonstrate that we could build a biofuel that was truly sustainable at scale, that wasn't based on corn or vegetable oil, which are both, but it was renewable. So I was using animal fats as something that was coming out of, rendering processes of chicken and beef and pork and all of our edible materials of animal slaughter and human use, and repurposing those into fuel. And it was a fascinating business. It turned into an interesting IP licensing arrangement ultimately, and I'm glad I did it. But it was at a moment, it was in a window of time where there was sufficient government momentum to base it on, but it was also something that needed to wind down over time because that government involvement waned, and so much of that industry sort of is rusting in the middle of the country now.
Yeah, interesting. And then this MetaBrite. So it sounded like it was kind of a rocket ship, and then
So MetaBrite was a great success until it was my biggest failure.
a great success until it wasn't. Yeah.
Until it wasn't. Yeah. The story there was we had built a piece of tech that we were licensing to several firms, and we were at a multi-million-dollar ARR run rate, growing 50% a month. 50% a month compounding. And from that moment on, from the moment we, the shit hit the fan, if you will pardon my language, we were dead within 90 days.
Because your biggest customer pulled out?
Pulled out. Yep. And there's a whole story behind that.
That's like my worst nightmare. I'm disproportionately with one client right now a lot,
Yeah.
and it's so scary. Yeah.
And there was no time to recover. The second, third, and fourth largest clients were nowhere near the aggregate benefit. And the whole operation had been built to scale around the first client. And when they pulled out unexpectedly, and there was no time to recover. And I couldn't look my investors in the face and say, you should put more into this. We should keep trying to move forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a tough lesson and hard to swallow, but just a black swan event that you learn as a founder. Sometimes shit happens.
And how was that for you personally, as far as up until this point, we all have little micro failures, but this was your first kind of like, wait, I'm not a guy who has this. So how was that on you from an ego
it was
perspective?
Horrible. It was gutting. And to have to, talk to my employees and my investors and explain the situation and just say, I don't see an option. We have to shut it down.
So hard.
And it was just devastating.
Did you have a community outside of your wife? I mean, obviously there's only so much you can lean on your spouse for. So do you surround yourself with, community of other founders who understood and who could kind of
I wish I'd had more. And again, I think that was part of what my motivation to start FounderNexus was that I wish I'd had the community. I didn't have that at the time, not at scale. And I always wished I had, because if the few people I did have to go to were incredible and wonderful supports, and I'm so glad they were in my life. I realize now what I have on offer at FounderNexus is something that can scale well beyond my influence and be a lasting support network for everybody that's affiliated with it.
Yeah. So tell me about FounderNexus. I'm so curious and I love it. I love that it's out there. It's needed.
So I'll start by saying that the genesis of this started 2018 or so. DocuSign had gone public. I realized I didn't need to work anymore, and I really wanted to give back to the entrepreneurial community something of substance. And again, reflecting on the failures and other things that had gone on in my life. And the aha moment was that the best guidance I ever got on any of my journeys to date had been that came from other venture-backed founders. And conversely, the worst guidance I ever got routinely came from my investors, advisors, and board members who had not been founders themselves. Now, this was unusual to me to have this recognition, because these people, I have tremendous respect for these people. They'd given me money, they'd given me their time, they were giving me their energy, their focus, and clearly their best ideas. They wanted me to succeed. And yet, simply because they hadn't sat in that particular chair at that particular moment in their career, they gave often very poor guidance. And as an early stage founder, it's hard to resist that push. If a very seasoned investor or board member is telling you to turn left and your instinct is to turn right, it's very hard to resist turning left. And
Absolutely.
yet, whichever direction you choose, if it goes to hell, the founder's the one that gets fired. Okay, so the realization was, if I could arm more founders with the experience that they all commonly shared, I call it communities of common interest. If I could put a community of common interest together and allow them to be in a state where they could openly share that experience with one another, each person could learn from the battle scars of the others and therefore make incrementally better decisions. And I call this all levers up to what I call the success equation. And the success equation simply says that every decision the founders make is a long string of, think of them like integers, 0 to 1. And the 0 to 1 represents the quality of each decision they make in terms of how they implement and execute. All multiplied together equals probability of success. So if you got them all ones, meaning you got every decision 100% right, all ones multiplied together, your odds of success are quite high. If you get even one critical decision wrong, a 0, the whole equation fails. That's hard to swallow. And if you get any small percentage of those decisions below average, below a 0.5, the equation is failing and hard to recover. So no wonder venture-backed founders only succeed at 3%, 97% failure rate. Not a surprise. The odds of getting all those decisions above a 0.5 relative, above average, across the entire life cycle of the business are incredibly low. However, if you put that founder, the one that's making the decision, in a room of other experienced founders who've been at that similar stage in their careers, and you get them to share their learned wisdom, those battle scars, the person solving that problem is incrementally going to make a better decision. So let's say they were coming in at a 0.3 on a 1 scale. Well, maybe they get it to a 0.5 or a 0.6 by listening to a few other founders. Over the course of time and all of those decisions, that accumulates to an outcome you radically change the odds of success. And that is the basis for FounderNexus.
And who are the right members if somebody's listening and they're like, I want this?
So we specifically index for founders that meet 3 qualification criteria. They have to have been a venture scale founder for at least 3 years. They have to have raised some capital that's not friends and family. So an angel or a VC has invested in them already. And they have to be building something, what I call venture scale, which is their pitch deck says it's going to be north of 100 million annual revenue. Okay. So those are the 3 criteria. Why do I care? Because after 3 years and the hard knocks of trying to raise professional capital and trying to build a big business, you build scar tissue. You've been kicked around enough to understand that you don't have all the right ideas, and that you would actually be glad to listen to some other people and assimilate their experience into yours rather than having to keep getting beat up over and over and over again. And so I then organize them within FounderNexus into tiers, and the tiers are associated with the stage of journey they're on at the moment. So looking for a new co-founder, next venture, 0 to series seed, pre-seed, 0 to 2 million ARR, 2 to 10, series A, 10 to 50, series B, series C, 50 plus million ARR, series D and beyond, looking for the exit. Such that when people join FounderNexus, as a founder, not only are you joining in any type of founder role, you don't have to be the CEO, you can be the head of technology or the head of marketing or the head of sales or whatever. You're a founder. You took the big risk. And by joining, you're now going to be paired up in all of these little micro sessions with other founders that are at or above your level of personal experience to glean their experience.
And is it the same role? Are you putting CTOs with CTOs or CTOs with CMOs and CEOs?
Only if they want to. But basically, no, we're not looking to match. There's no industry specifics, and we aren't trying to do that because the journey is so similar. When you're building a venture-backed company, what you need to know along the way to be successful and make those incrementally better choices at each decisioning point varies across the map. And you're making these as a team or as an individual or however the decision needs to come to light in your own company. And so the people that are disciplined in the similar disciplines, so technical, sales, marketing, they do find each other, of course.
Yeah.
But it's more important that you stage match them than it is to experience match them.
That makes sense. And so what's the actual practical experience? They're meeting in person? How often? They're meeting on Zoom?
So we do a combination of live events and Zoom events, more heavily indexed to Zoom because founders have way too little time. They have no free time.
They don't want to schlep in the car. Yeah.
Never.
And they're all over, right? I mean, where are these founders?
This is, FounderNexus is a global organization. So part of what we offer is the ability to meet not only the founders in your own community and learn from their experience, but also to engage with founders that are not in your community, that are coming in from other communities in order to learn from their experience and wisdom. So this has many, many knock-on positive effects. And it particularly is beneficial the further up the phase pyramid you go. So imagine that there are a lot of founders in the Series Seed 0 to 2 million ARR range companies. And once you get to 50 plus million, there's a very small number of those people. And they're super busy and they're super hard to get their attention. And my promise is, if you join FounderNexus to that level, every time you touch a FounderNexus event, you're going to be in a room with other 50 plus million founders. And that community might be in your region and it might be somewhere else in the world, but they are going to be sharing the same level of stresses and strains and growth and expansion issues that you are. And those people understand the value, believe me, of being able to affiliate with other people at their same stage.
And is it like a guided kind of formatted forum experience, or is it more of like I bring in outside speakers, or what are they getting out of that experience when they show up?
So it's a combination. I call it a micro forum experience, because if you think about EO and YPO, Investis and Hamptons and all these other companies that offer forum type experiences, you are put into a forum where you stay for years, typically. It's the same group of professionals that you get first assigned to, you get into this group. I have done most, if not all of those groups myself, and they're fantastic. And I love every one of them. And I would never discourage anyone from being a member of any one of those groups. What I personally got out of it is I got a fair amount of business wisdom in the first 18 months from each person. But because the group doesn't turn over, there's no new blood coming in. Anytime after that, I was getting more life wisdom than business wisdom, which was very valuable to me. And again,
totally makes sense, though. Totally makes sense.
What I do is I put people together in what I call microforums, which exist temporally for 30 to 60 minutes. So you're put into a group on a particular topic, sometimes with an outside expert brought in to facilitate the conversation on that topic. And it's 5 or 6 other founders in the room with you, and you're given the topic, the stage, and you push go, and everybody's like, here's my issue on this topic. And you can do a round table. Here's what I did, here's what I did, here's what I did, here's what worked, what didn't work, et cetera.
Is somebody facilitating this conversation, or you're just knowing that they're going to find wisdom and then maybe go, hey, you know what, John and I have more to talk about. I'll do a follow-up call with him.
It's both of those things, actually. They are facilitated, but they are also, it's intended to, again, facilitate new ways of approaching problems for each person, such that they are encouraged to follow up with everybody afterwards and dive deeper and dig out the relevant stuff that they need from that conversation. But done at a global scale, so that now I can extract that same kind of wisdom from a founder in Tokyo, London, Buenos Aires, or Dayton, Ohio.
Interesting. So the peer-to-peer part of it, are there any rules around like advice giving, or are people going there for advice? They're like, no, tell me what to do.
No, it's quite the opposite. It follows the same protocols as the other groups. No advice is allowed. You can only share experience. And that's on purpose. Because if you,
like the non-Gestalt,
yeah. So it's, nobody's talking out. What you hear here stays here, number one. Number two, you're not allowed to give advice ever. If you start a sentence with I would or you should, everybody needs to jump on and say, stop, rephrase as, here's what I did when I faced that.
Yeah. And you're just getting so much energy from it. It's what you were born to do. You're feeling very fulfilled, but are you knowing your personality from this conversation? I'm guessing that there's certain metrics that you have or certain goals or visions for this community. What are those? Or is it just to feel like you're giving back and that people are gaining wisdom?
So this is a long-term project, Shauna. This is, I'm out to sort of prove 3 things. First is, as members of FounderNexus, I believe I can prove that I will at least triple the members' odds of success as compared with non-member founders. I think that's a low number. I think ultimately when we're able to look back on this 10 years from now, it'll probably be way more than triple. But it's going to take some time bring that to fruition. So that's not something I can prove immediately. And it's based on that success equation. If I can incrementally improve every decision each member makes by exposing them to new ideas, over time that accrues to their beneficial outcome. Okay, so that's how I can stand by that one. The second one is I believe I can, with a few other things I've also put in place since 2018, prove that venture success can be achieved in any geography, anyway, at any time. And by that, I mean there are certain pieces that are needed for venture success to exist. Today, most venture success exists in about 30 cities in the world, which have all the money, talent, and experience to leverage. All right. Seattle is one of them. San Francisco is one of them. London, Tokyo, you get a few of these. Okay. I believe that that has affected an economic distortion effect on the world, where all the best and brightest people are forced to leave their comfortable homes and families and support systems and moved to one of those 30 cities in order to build a venture-backed company. I want to prove that you don't have to do that. So FounderNexus is one leg of that stool. It's being able to say, I could be in Dayton, Ohio, and start my company here, and I can get access to other world-class founders without having to leave Dayton, Ohio. So that was one leg of the stool. Second leg of the stool came, COVID gave it to us, which was remote work. I can stay in Dayton, Ohio, and hire a world-class team that doesn't have to move to Dayton, and that I don't have to move to them. We can be a great team, but be remote from one another, and they can be from anywhere. Again, I can stay in Dayton. The third one corresponds to another company I helped co-found in 2018 called VC Lab. And VC Lab is an incubator for venture capital with a specific focus on trying to build venture capital infrastructure outside of those 30 power cities that I described earlier. As of last year, VC Lab is now responsible for more than 50% of the worldwide growth of the venture capital industry as a whole.
Wow.
And close to 90% of those new funds that outcome from VC Lab are outside of the Power 30 cities.
That's incredible.
That's working. So the combination of that plus remote work plus FounderNexus gives us the three-legged stool to say that company in Dayton, Ohio can be funded, staffed, and supported without ever having to leave. And since founders are on a very perilous journey, no matter what they're doing, you need access to family support, other things like moving is often the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, uprooting everybody.
As a founder for your emotional health, right? So
yeah,
that's a much bigger, longer term network. You know, by the time I turn over the keys to this to some other future generation, I hope that that's coming to bear. I hope I can start to see a number of venture-backed companies that exist in places like Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah. I mean, I know that there's not a lot of money being put to use right now outside of AI. Are most of these businesses somehow incorporating AI, or they're AI businesses?
You know, I've been through enough cycles to know that this is a phase or a wave that we're in. You know, in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was internet everything, right? .com. Everything was .com. You had to be a .com. And these come and go. And I think that AI is another driving force, just like the internet was, and it will have a long tail effect on the economy of the world. But I also know that non-AI things are also getting funded. I think the question most investors, including myself, are asking is, if you've got a business plan today, how are you planning to use this tool set, this new tool set, to do something better? How is it impacting your business plan? It doesn't have to be the business plan, meaning I don't have to be sold on the idea that you're going to be the next LLM or the next NVIDIA. What I need to know is maybe the impact on your business is that you can, what used to take 50 people, you can do with 5. And therefore, you're a much more capital efficient business. Maybe it's some other speed, access, something else, some way to get to a marketplace. Maybe it's distribution that you're getting. I don't know. But how are you using this new toolkit to make your business plan successful?
Interesting. Well, you're giving so much back to the economy, to the tech ecosystem. I mean, honestly, on a global scale. I'm curious if anyone's listening, what you need right now, like what's keeping you up at night, or what could anybody do to give back to you?
Spread the word to the people, the founders that you know in your life that might qualify. Have them come to FounderNexus and apply. It's open to apply. Any founder can come and kick the tires if they pass our criteria. And there's no commitment. You can come a few times to try it out. And then you need to be invited to join. So we are assessing the people that come as much as they're assessing us. And then once an invitation is granted, you get inside the circle, and it's access to this incredible global network of experienced founders. So yeah, my biggest lift right now is getting the word out to founders that qualify.
Interesting. And some of these, they might hit the three prongs that you talked about. But what if you find that they just don't really have those innate leadership skills? Do you find that that is teachable, innate, or is there some vetting process when you say, pretend I said, oh, I've got this great woman I want to refer to you, and you're like, oh, she's kind of a shit show, but I think I could fix her up a little bit if I did this work with her. Is there anything that you guys are bringing as far as coaching or development?
Absolutely. So I developed years ago something I call the superpower analysis. And the superpower analysis is designed to help identify the core unique thing that each person kind of was put on this world to do. And by virtue of helping discover that for each person, I can help them find the right role in society, find the right role in their company, and particularly the best way to contribute to a team and or startup venture.
And is that available? Can I buy that?
Nope. That's just for our members.
That's no fair.
Yeah.
I want to use it.
And it's incredibly powerful. Like everybody that goes through it. So this is something I offer to all the members. So if I find somebody that's struggling in a particular role or position or in some way to work with people, simply by helping them discover and uncover that superpower, I can guide them to the best possible fit role for them for that journey. And also how they fit within the context of a team, which is also something that other tools that are out there do not focus on.
So did you take different assessments and kind of bring them together, or is it your own thing that you designed?
It's my own thing I designed.
That's so cool. Now you've got me so curious, because there's a whole gap of people that I'm thinking of that I'm like, oh, they haven't raised yet, or, they don't hit all three, but they might need you the most. Those 0 to that very early stage pre-seed.
The one metric that I can be a little more flexible on is having raised professional capital. Because sometimes, and this often happens, a founder will try really hard on an attempt and fail because they couldn't raise any money. And they've got years under their belt of failure, not a failure. A failure would be the wrong way to characterize it. They were unsuccessful. That's different.
Yeah.
I said I'm indexing for scar tissue, and that's the same kind of thing. So I'm finding that I'm pretty hardcore maintaining you're building something venture scale and you've been at it for 3 or more years.
Yeah. Well, you have to have that for the integrity of the group, for people to want to join, because they want to be in the room with other people who can lift them up. Yeah.
But fundraising is something that can be taught and coached. The other scar tissue, you have to just accumulate it.
Yeah. No, you've done it. I mean, you're so impressive. And talking like parent to parent, is there something that you hope your kids, if they ever listen? My kids don't, but if they ever listened to this, is there anything that you want your kids to take away from how you've structured or built your life with your wife? And just
it's something we've encouraged their whole life, which is try to make this world a better place while you're here. It's okay to be here, but leave it in better shape than you found it.
I love that. That's great. Okay. So what's your ultimate fuel? What fuels you?
Honestly, I had a near-death experience a few years ago. And coming out of that, the thing that really struck me was that the only scorecard in life that actually matters is relationships. On the day we all die, the quality of the people that you had a meaningful impact on in a relationship and that impacted you is the only scorecard that matters. Doesn't matter how much money you made, how many houses you owned, or how many trips you took, or the watch you wear, or the car you drive. And because that's your legacy. And so to me, that is how I judge my life is, am I building relationships that have mutual impact? And so when I say FounderNexus is the absolute apogee of my professional aspiration, it is that because I am now able to meaningfully impact the trajectory of hopefully tens of thousands of founders in the world, and meaningfully give back to them in a way that will impact their journey. I can't think of a higher purpose in life.
Thank you for listening to the What Fuels You podcast. If you'd like to check out past episodes to hear from more business leaders, go to fueltalent.com/podcast. And if you have a minute, please leave a review and rating on your favorite podcast app, or share this episode with a friend or colleague. Please share any feedback or interview suggestions for other guests by sending a message to podcast@fueltalent.com. I'm Shauna Swerland, and thanks again for listening.